Welcome back to Benton Homestead. Today we're just going to have a little chat. I'm going to show you what we've been up to and we're going to talk about some future plans. And here's Evie. So I know we've been quiet lately, but it's not for lack of trying. We did actually film 2 videos that I'm not going to be able to publish. They were both about the honeybees, and the sound of the cicadas was so loud that you really just couldn't hear anything we're saying. So the reason I'm able to film outside right now is that we're almost at the end of the cicada season, so things are quieting down, and by next summer we're going to have to figure out some sort of microphone solution, but fortunately we have some time to figure that out because the cicadas are moving on. If you know how busy we've been since the time that we arrived in Japan last February, going on a year and a half now, you know that it means a lot when I say that August of this month was actually one of the most busiest months we've had. So we've been working on the honeybees and all kinds of things for the visa process. We now have our ryokan, which is our updated rental license, updated from the Minpaku, and we have our Japanese driver's licenses. So we have been very, very busy, and we're looking forward to things slowing down a little bit in the fall. Do you want outside? Is that what you want? Ponkan? You want outside? So since I'm here, I thought we could start the video off by taking a little look at this house. If you've been following our story, you know that we live just around the corner from our guest house at this former inn. This house sat abandoned for 40 years before we bought it last year. And when I go back and look through the video of that first walkthrough showing the condition of the house, it honestly doesn't look that much different today. So I guess it doesn't go without saying, so I'll just explain that the reason that this house still looks very much like the day that we bought it, even though we've lived here for a year, is because we've spent that year remodeling another house in order to open our guest house, in order to get the business manager visa from the startup visa, in order to maintain our status of residency here in Japan. So when you have so much to do, and we're working every day on either the guest house, the farm, or the honeybees, the visa, the other logistics. These kinds of things, our own personal living space, just really moves to the bottom of the priority list. But we are going to do some things soon to make our life a little bit easier. Here's a closer look at those cool chairs that we found in our YouTube live video where we were unboxing some things up in the attic. I absolutely love them. Evan's going to work on fixing our toilet so we don't have to use this bucket of water to flush every time. And he's using some of the new woodworking tools that he got for our honeybee workshop in order to build beehives to also fix these shoji screen doors so we no longer have to look at these. These were broken by the other street dog that we've been trying to rescue, Hime-sama, Princess. You might be familiar with her story if you follow my Instagram stories. She's actually Bosco's grandmother, and we caught her last year when we caught her 4 puppies, got her spayed, and she lived with us for a few days before we left her alone for the first time, and she broke through this door, so we've had cardboard on it ever since. I'm really impressed with the way that Evan has rebuilt these doors, so that'll be in a video coming out soon. We don't have hot water or the ability to take a bath or shower here at this house either, so when I say we're camping, I really mean that. This is the state of the bathroom. We're obviously not using this at all. It has not been touched. It should be fairly easy to fix once we actually get hot water and have the time to focus on this house. But until then, we're primarily showering down at the local onsen. And walking down towards the kitchen, we don't really have a kitchen to speak of, so we refill these water bottles over at the guest house and bring them over here for drinking. And Evan realized recently that we do have a bunch of glass jars found in this house, so pretty soon we'll be able to kick this plastic to the curb and start refilling glass jars. This big fridge is a new addition. We were living without a fridge for quite a while. This was a gift from one of our friends and neighbors who live up near our honeybee yard, and they were actually happy to get rid of it along with a small freezer that we haven't hooked up yet. I like to call this our built-in air conditioning. This is one of the back rooms, and believe it or not, one of the rooms where I actually have taken the time to organize. So all of these boxes, all of these things are actually filled with very nice condition antiques, vintage treasures, that sort of thing. It's my mission to save as many CRT TVs as possible before they all get thrown away. This one's actually fairly organized too. This is all cloth items, vintage clothing, brand new gift boxes, and some sporting goods. But that's the current condition of things, so let's take a look about what's coming up next. Speaking of, here's a new door right here. Look at that. So I'm walking down to the guest house here, and I'm passing one of the fields that we own. This here on the right hand side that has been freshly weed whacked, plus all those overgrown trees back there, and it goes way back almost to that house you can see in the distance. This is going to be our chicken yard, and we might be using it for some other things depending on how things shape up over the next year, but this will be a project for 2025. We might get around to cutting these trees and turning them into wood chips or biochar this winter, so we're just going to see how things go. But let's move on to what is probably going to be our next project. The garage at the guest house. You might have to use a lot of imagination, but can you picture this as a cute little shop and the benefit that this would have being right next to the guest house? Again, if you've been following our story, you know that we've had some plans for this since day one, and the garage was one of the beneficial reasons that we chose this house, having such a big space. Now, originally, we were thinking it would be Evan's honeybee workshop, but as you know, we decided to put his honeybee workshop in the garage at our other house, just around the corner, and that leaves us with, what do we do with this space? Because the guest house is a private rental and guests are allowed to use the driveway for themselves, that means if we open a shop here, it would be beneficial for guests, but we also need more parking. And I've done some measurements and have determined that this space here would be enough to add 2 angled parking spots, so we could have guests and shoppers at the same time. And in fact, that's why this pile of ugly rocks has been here this whole time, because these rocks are going to come in handy building a little bit of a wall and potted plant area. I'm sure the first things you'll notice is that 1, it still has some stuff in it, and 2, we'll need to figure out something so the front door is more inviting. Okay, let's start with the stuff that's still in here. If you remember what it looks like when we first bought it, this is significantly less stuff, but what are we going to do with all of it? This front corner was all determined to be unusable stuff over a year ago, and we've just been storing it here until we get to a point where we can chop it up. We're either going to recycle it, put some of this in the municipal garbage pickup, and some of it will be burned and turned into biochar by us and our nice neighbor. Another one of our neighbors is a very skilled craftsman that we've hired for a few small projects before, and we'll be asking him to get us some nice pieces of glass cut for these old wooden windows so there won't be any gaps and cracks left. This here is some garbage and the remaining fertilizer, chemicals, and other things that we're not sure how to dispose of. So once again, I'm just going to take this stuff and combine it with other stuff in a different location that I'm also not quite sure yet how to dispose of properly. This is going to be such a cute, traditionally constructed shop, but we're going to have to take all of this wood out of the rafters most likely, unless I can think of a way to hide it or make it appealing in some way. We've really been dreading this part of the garage clean out. We're gonna have to get up in those rafters and see what the heck is even up there. I'm assuming it's mostly farm stuff, and it might be more fertilizer. Now right here where this wood shelf extends to, I'm thinking of hanging a curtain or putting some sort of temporary wall, which would block off the back approximate 1/3 of the space, so I could use that for storage or supplies. But if this becomes a shop, a roadside farm stand, whatever it is that we decide to do with this space, I want the only things stored here to be for the space. None of this farm equipment, old tools, and everything else that we have. The rest of this is mostly old tools and things that we've actually been using that we found in this garage. This house's former owner was a farmer, and we put many of his old tools to very good use. But these are the tools that we haven't been using. So some of them are antique, some of them need repaired, and I suppose we're just going to have to find a space to put these that is not in our future shop. And we also have some construction material like these things that we got from our friend who will be opening a vineyard in the neighborhood sometime soon. These are old tile pieces, which we've shown in a previous video, and this is some shikui plaster sparkly material. This is the very beginning of Ōmishima's future retro arcade, which we would love to do at some point. We got these 2 cabinets from the lovely people who own the new pizzeria Takibi here in the neighborhood. And these are just the cabinets. They don't have a motherboard, so they don't have the games inside. And the reason that I'm considering saving so many CRTs is that they could be put to good use saving these old arcades. So this is just a side quest that Evan and I have been on for probably our whole lives, wanting to save retro games and put together an arcade. So I think we're in a good place to do that. These are just stored here for the time being, and we will be fixing them up when we get some free time. Now, of course, cool old things like this and like these things can be used as display items for the store itself. So these won't need to go anywhere, they can stay here. Most of the interior walls are in good condition and just need some cleaning and slight restoration. But besides clearing it of its contents, the garage does need some actual renovation work. And here you can see the inside of this old roll-up door, but I'm picturing something bright and airy and inviting. Maybe we can repurpose some of those old glass doors that we found. I'm not sure. If anyone has any good ideas for how we can make this an inviting space for people to enter a shop, I am more than willing to listen to your ideas. Now this whole panel here has been replaced with wood, so we'll need to get the shikui plaster there or maybe some sort of window. I'm not sure yet. Also, these 2 panels here have some cracks in it, meaning that the plaster is starting to sag. This plaster here has a little bit of water damage. You can see some of that is recent because the plaster has started piling up on this sheet, which is where I have all these screens stored, and I just put that sheet down a few months ago. It's pretty much perfect timing to get started on this because the roof is just now starting to fail in some spots. And lastly, these 2 panels will need replaced because look what happened during the last rain. See that tiny amount of daylight coming in up there? I'm going to assume more than a little rain got in that hole because as you can see, this whole slab of plaster has pulled itself off the bamboo structure underneath. Now the thing is that this corner did need a little bit of work previously. Of course it didn't need anywhere near this much repair, but the plaster was sagging a little bit to begin with. So this isn't the end of the world, and we're going to treat it as a learning experience and a good way to look closer at these materials and the way the walls are constructed. This is the culprit, just one board curled outwards and allowed the water to go in. We're also going to take down these gutters that are useless and start planning the roof repair.
So since there's no more roof here on the corner, it's letting water just drip on down, and this whole vertical timber is rotten. This horizontal one is too, at least on the end, and then this one's the next to go.
Regardless of how it looks, this is the only part of the roof on this garage that leaks. As much as I would love to redo this roof with tile so it matches the guest house next to it, I think we're going to redo it with another corrugated metal or something with a less expensive material. We can't store farm stuff in Evan's workshop because here you can see it mid-project and it's full as it is just with his woodworking tools and honeybee stuff. So farm stuff can't live here. Here we are back at the second house, and it seems to us like this would be the best place to store farm equipment. It's a nice convenient location right next to our front gate and our compost area, which Evie really wants to make a higher priority. We've already got some farm tools in here, but most of this stuff really does not need to live here and can easily be gotten rid of or moved. Here's that little stand-up freezer our neighbors gave us. Thank you. We can move that inside and start putting it to use. This is our next round of scrap metal recycling, so maybe we can just get this out of here. And these buckets are just full of garbage, so I just need to take those down in the proper bags. We absolutely will be getting rid of this structure at some point because it's lopsided, it detracts from the house, and it's just made out of cinder blocks. But for now, it's a great way to store things right next to our gate and keep them out of the rain. We can also store some things here next to it if it doesn't need to stay sheltered from the rain. And we also have another option. Right now I'm using this little hallway to store even more future metal recycling. Some of this doesn't fit in the K-truck, unfortunately, or I would just say that we would take a load down. We still probably will, but it won't get rid of all of this. However, down at the end of this area, we have what we lovingly call the pickle room. Most of this seems to be plastic, which we won't be keeping and can recycle. We're also going to be using this styrofoam to cut to the size of honeybee hives and use for insulating our colonies in the winter. I think this is going to be the next room that I go through because it seems like it wouldn't take very long to sort the trash from anything worth keeping. This is also a cinder block structure that was added on later, and at some point we will be removing this small add-on as well. Here is that little room from the other side, and I think it's easy to see why we'd like to get rid of it. One of my favorite things about these old houses is the roof lines, and you can see how much this little square add-on is hiding the beautiful architecture behind it. Not to mention, if this little add-on was removed, we could walk along the outside of the house from the left side to the right side, and then that door goes into the kitchen. So it would make our outdoor space all that much more functional. I can't wait to see what Evan comes up with when he gets to turn this back into a hanging planter box. That's going to be so beautiful on this back side of the house. While I'm out here, here's a view of the house from this side. So you can see just how much that front cinder block structure takes away from being able to see the full roof line and the front door of the house. It'll look so much better when that's gone, but again, we're using it for the time being. And since we might be storing things in this back hallway, I think I'm going to move our clothesline. It doesn't look very nice there anyways, and once in a while our socks blow down into the orchard below. So I'm going to move it over around the corner over there. And if I move the clothesline back here, that means I should find a new home for these plastic crates, which I guess I should do anyways because I don't want them getting brittle in the sun. We are actually using these for moving our little tomato boats down to the farmer's market, and I'm sure they'll have good use in the future. Even though they are made of plastic, they're a great size for storing and moving things. I feel like this video is starting to get a little long, but another thing we'd like to do that doesn't really serve an immediate purpose, not an immediate payoff, but an improvement that we'd like to do, is to get rid of this little outhouse. We've got a urinal we've got a urinal in here and a squatty potty over here. And they were just added on to the outside of the house. We'd like to reuse some of this wood and old glass and just add a little bit of extra floor space to our courtyard. I don't think that would take very long to dismantle. And somewhere behind the back wall of this urinal used to be an original round window to the bathroom. I'm hoping it's just an easy fix, perhaps just a thin layer of plaster on the outside that we could take off and reveal that original round window. Also, no doubt it would make these windows here look better. You never want to cover up a window with a wooden structure, so removing this little outhouse structure would make a big improvement on the outside of this part of the house. Which one of you out there wants to come help with this project? Ponkan, what are you doing? Also, while I'm back here, just a little glimpse at our super antique version of a septic tank, which is not even really a septic tank because it's open air. So this is a air pump that pumps in here so it keeps the smell down. But under here is our toilet system. Isn't that cool? Come on, Ponkan. Why are you doing this? What? I think you can find a better place to hang out. I guess I'll end the video upstairs here at our second house. Whenever we do get around to start doing actual renovations at this house, this is where I plan to start. Because these rooms are really not that far from being perfectly functional and ready to go. They really just need some cleaning, some staining, new tatami. They've got all the furniture. We just need new screens. When I come up here, I think this is actually not going to be that hard. These rooms are probably easier to renovate than any of the rooms over at the guest house were. So this would be a good place to build confidence and get back into the renovation game. Right, Bosco? Is this where you run around? Did you put all these scratches in the tatami? This 60-year-old tatami that needs changed. Have you been scratching it up? That's right. But we have lots to do before we get to make these rooms a priority. We're thinking we might be able to get phase 1 of the guest house garage turned into a shop done this fall if we work hard enough. And then this winter, we will be focusing on phase 2 renovations over at the guest house. We've got to get that bath repaired. We've got to do some other work on the bathroom itself. Really want to get that done while tourism is slow in the winter. And we also want to get the field that I showed earlier with all those young trees on it cut down, chipped up, and taken care of, and winter would be a good time for that project also. So all that being said, are we going to have any time to work on this house before at least next spring? I don't know. What do you think, Bosco? Obviously, I can't wait to get to this part of the renovation, and I really wish we could start working on this house sooner rather than later. But we've got a lot to do between now and then, and it really is just a matter of priorities. When you're doing all the work yourself, you can only really do one or two things at a time, and it's just Evan and I. And sometimes we're able to hire contractors for a few things, but for the most part, you're looking at it. So thanks for joining me in this little conversation about where our second house currently is, what we hope to do, and what our priorities will be in the near and distant future. Of course, I always really appreciate the insight, feedback, and comments from all of you as we go through this journey. So please feel free to comment and keep in touch and let me know what you think of this video and what we've got going on. I'm trying to get about a video out each week, but it's been about 2 weeks since our last video, so obviously I'm not perfect at that. That's just my goal. But if you'd like a little bit more of daily activity and updates, you can always check our Instagram stories. I post there almost every day. Not every day, but almost every day, just to let people know what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. Working on the bees, working on the guest house, working on the renovations, doing wood construction projects, all kinds of things. So feel free to pop over to our Instagram if you'd like more frequent updates. Alright guys, I obviously have my work cut out for me. I'm going to go start moving things out of the garage and figuring out my battle plan. So we'll catch you in the next video.